What's going on, everybody? It's Childish. We're back at it again with the next episode of Critical Thinking. Y'all know what it is. Before that Educate and Dominate series, we brought along the Critical Thinking, which was a series of videos based on various concepts in the game, my own personal thoughts and my experiences. In addition to that, some of the people that are near and dear to my heart helping me out with regards to theory crafting over the last 2 years. I've had the distinct honor and pleasure of bringing on board one of our leaders within the Epic Fail community. We got ourselves today Bad Hands. What's going on, my man?
Pretty good, man. How you doing?
Good, good. We got a lot of things that get talked about in the game, and so I'm very excited to bring him on board today. Today's video is going to be talking about speed tuning, explaining the concept of it and how you can incorporate it in your team. A lot of people have heard about it. Some people have seen some videos explained about it, but still there's a lot of, how do I say, going back and forth about is, what is this really about? So before we really get into the calculator, whatnot, Bad Hands, why don't you go ahead and just kind of fill us in? I feel like the value of the whole attack bar in general, people don't really know about. So in your words, how would you go ahead and explain that one?
Attack bar is one of the most confusing things to figure out for your units. There's a lot of math involved, but it can be broken down relatively easy. How Com2Us does the attack bar is they take your total speed. So let's say your unit has 250 speed, and then it will take 7% of that. So, of course, I picked a number I don't know off the top of my head, but we'll go with, let's go say 200. So we go 14, will be 14 would be your 7% of 200. So with that 14%, that is actually how much attack bar you gain per turn. So what a lot of people don't know is that you actually start out with everyone at 0% attack bar. Okay. So the units that are slower, they're only gaining 7% of their total speed, while the units are faster, gaining 7% of their total speed. So let's say if you have a 200 speed unit, it's gaining 14. If you had a 100 speed unit, it's only gaining 7. So it's gaining 14% of the attack bar instead of 7% of the attack bar.
Gotcha.
So over time, the faster your units are, the faster you get that attack bar gain, and the faster that unit will start. And that's where it starts getting even more confusing.
As always.
But the easiest thing to understand is that it starts out turn 0, so you gain 7% of your attack bar per turn. So let's say, again, 200 speed unit, so it's going to have 14 per turn that it's going to be gaining. Now there's ways to manipulate that, which are speed buffers or speed buff, but that is the basics of how the game functions as far as attack bar works.
Cool, cool. And so when coming into the game, a lot of people are going to see this video and they heard that and they're like, oh my gosh, that's a whole lot of things, that's a whole lot to take in. So let's kind of revert back to, in your eyes, we got a lot of people that are new to the game, and we got a lot of people that are mid to late stages of the game. When it comes to speed tuning, is there a time that somebody should focus on this, or does it kind of just depend on the person and how they want to take their game, as far as, to the next level, quote unquote? When do you think people should really focus on speed tuning?
I would really think you should focus on speed tuning once you get up to that Conquer 1 range and you're trying to look into pushing to Conk 2, Conk 3, because that's when you're going to start finding that most other people have started to speed tune their offense and or defense, that nothing can cut in between. Before then, kind of everyone speeds all over the place. If it's something you really want to focus on, like if you're Fighter 3 trying to get that Conqueror, or if you're a low-level Conqueror, it's going to help you get to that next point. But that's kind of the start point, I would think, is you're trying to push into that Conqueror 2 range, and you're noticing that, let's say it's your Lucian, that goes your 4th unit, and he's getting interrupted every single time by their Chloe. And so you can't really push up to that next level. That's when you want to start taking a better look at how close you can get your Lucians to your buffer.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you there. So looking at these attack bars and whatnot, we got ourselves a couple of units that buff just straight up attack bar. Then we got some units out there that buff, attack bar with a Swift. Is that going to have an effect on the whole concept of speed tuning?
Absolutely. Bernard cheats a little bit as a buffer because he does give you that speed buff, which, again, attack bar is based off your max speed. So speed buff increases your attack speed by 30%. So then you're gaining attack bar 30% faster because you are 30% more max speed. So he buffs up a little bit faster. And units that are really fast, like Kabila, are just easier to get up to those higher ranges. But then again, she doesn't have speed buff, so it's harder to get into her max range.
Gotcha, gotcha. And so it's funny that you're talking about Bernard probably being the one that's going to cheat the most here. There's been a lot of controversy as far as that turn order when it comes to, everybody quote unquote being at that effective, 100% of their attack bar. Does the Swift buff have an effect on who's going to go first, assuming that everybody caps out, all at the same time?
The speed buff, as far as you mean, like if your Bernard goes, then their Bernard's like max attack parts as well.
Right. Correct.
If you are, the whole point of speed tuning is if you are 100% in sync, that speed buff could push you ahead, and you go ahead of it because basically you jumped ahead of that Bernard by 1 speed at that point. Because let's say that Bernard's 1 speed slower, so let's say you have a 280 speed Bernard, that other Bernard's 279. If you're speed tuned, that speed buff will help you push up ahead. Instead of, let's say, an Orion, where you have to get even closer to Orion's max speed than you would be at Bernard's speed because he does not bring that speed buff.
Gotcha. Cool, cool, cool. And so I can imagine that even though Bernard is 1 unit, we got a lot of people trying out a various amount of units out there. There's so many attack bar units and whatnot. I would assume that from what you're stating, when you're syncing these units, everything's going to be different on the as far as the percentages you're going to be using with each buffer to be considered. Is that more or less correct?
Yes. Bernard buffs 30%. So you've got to be, it's more than just being 70%, because what you got to realize is the enemy Bernard is, if you barely outsped the enemy Bernard, or let's say enemy Chloe, then you're going to have to be within close enough range. You have to be over 70% to be synced with Bernard. It's around 74 to 75%, depending on what your speed is, to be Bernard's sync range. And then let's say you're using a Purian, where he buffs 50% of attack bar.
Yep.
And even though he's a slower unit, you have to be about 70% of Purian's overall speed to be able to be synced with him. Because again, your ticking speed is going to be a lot slower than, let's say, the enemy's Bernard, because the enemy's Bernard's a lot faster, but your Purian, let's say he's buffing up a Zyros. And that Zyros is 150 speed. So he's still ticking at 150 speed because he doesn't get the speed buff.
Right.
But that Bernard is still going at whatever his actual speed would be.
Gotcha. Cool, cool, cool. All right. So kind of next up here, I mean, we got this full-blown speed and tuning calculator. If I remember correctly, this was something that was provided on the Reddit forums, and then you kind of mix and match, you played around with it to try to use it to your advantage. So how did that all come about? When do you actually get into this? When you found that?
Well, when I found Arikono's speed tuning guide on Reddit, I took like 5 read-throughs to understand what it actually was saying for me to be able to understand it.
I took about 20.
Yeah,
I took about 20.
It's one of those things that's not easy to do. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to make a spreadsheet that would allow me to do it without having to make all these calculations every single time I changed up runes. So I wanted to make something where if I changed up the speed or I changed up different units and I wanted to make sure they're still speed tuned, that I could just plug it in. Like if I changed leader skills, let's say I went from a 0% leader skill to a 24% leader skill, I could just plug in that leader skill and be ready to go and just be able to see right away without having to go, okay, well, my Bernard's got this base speed, and then do all the calculations. So what I did is I created a spreadsheet that does all the calculations for you. So all you have to do is enter minimal amount of possible information and then find out whether or not we are actually speed tuned.
Good deal. I like it. I like it. So let's get into some examples. I know that you said you have, since you use it on yourself, I would assume that you got your offense in there. You want to go ahead and kind of showcase that?
All right. So this is what it looks like, and this is my offense here that I currently use. So as you can see, I use Bernard, I use Seek, I use Faye, and I use Lucian. And those are the attack orders of those units. So Bernard goes first, Seek goes second, Faye goes third, Lucian goes fourth. So what I have to enter is any of the information that is in white. So we've got our base speeds here. So I want to enter in, if I want to enter in Bernard's speed, so 111, Seek's 110, Faye 102, Lucian 103. Then I enter my tower bonus, because tower bonus is 15% of your base speed. It's not 15% of your total speed. So that's something some people get a lot of confused about,
right? Is
that most calculations are off your base speed, not off your total speed.
Gotcha.
Swift set as well is based off your base speed. So if you're using a Swift set, it's 25%. If you're not, it's 0. Like for my Faye and Lucian aren't on Swift, so they have 0 there. And then leader skill, again, based off base speed. And we've got our units down in here. So we got, let's say I wasn't using this is just an example how easy it is to change around. Let's say I wasn't using Faye as my leader. I could just type in zeros here, and that's going to go ahead and change my total speeds over here without me having to do any other calculations, without me having to do anything else.
I saw that. I like it. I like it.
So anything in gray is a calculation. So those are all you don't want to touch because they all have all the formula. So if you delete that, you delete the formula. That's the one downside to Excel. But can't do too much about that. But as you can see here, so Bernard's my fastest buffer, so he's got the highest percent, so he's at 100%. And then Seek is at 73, Faye's at 72, Lucian's at 72. And then we've got our ticks percent, so this is what they're ticking at. And then you see in this last box is tick with speed buff. So what that means is once they get the speed buff, that is how fast they're gaining attack bar. So as you can see, it's about 5 higher, which makes a big difference in the end.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Cool.
Now, the other thing I will note is if you're not using a Swift set, you do not need to put out your runes in each individual spot. Like for Faye, I could just put in whatever her plus rune said because she's not on Swift. But since Swift is calculated off your base speed, when the screen you see, so when you see a unit and you see that green text next to the speed, that's including your Swift set. So that is not the actual amount you have from your runes. So if they do have a Swift set, I suggest putting in each rune just so you know it's 100% correctly. But if they're on like a Violent or Fatal or Rage or set like that, you can just enter them in as the total speed because there's nothing that's going to affect them differently.
Gotcha. Okay. I was gonna say, I mean, like, see, that's the weird thing. Maybe I might be reading it wrong, but even if you put it in on with regards to the units on the Swift, wouldn't that still be not affect? I mean, if the base speeds, the tower, the Swift set, and the leader all gets affected by the base speed, then why does the numbers even come into play? Why do we have to put in like the violence? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? I'm trying to think here.
Well, all I'm saying is, you know, when you're seeing the unit screen, you've got that green text that says speed next to it.
Gotcha.
All right. So if you have a unit on Swift, that includes your Swift set.
Oh.
So that's where the problem comes in. That's why just to make sure no one messes that up.
Right.
I have them enter the runes in individually. But if you're not running Swift, there's no Swift in there. Gotcha. So then you can just put in the total speed there. So like, for example, my Lucian, instead of entering in all these numbers here, I could just delete them and type in 78. Because that's what he has plus on his runes, and it doesn't affect his total speed. But if I change my Bernard here and changed him to the 153 that shows up, that's more than is actually on his set.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. All
so
right.
That's the basics of it, is so you can see percentages, but those percentages don't mean anything if you can't see if a unit will cut in front of you. So again, the goal should be shooting for about 74, 75% with Bernard. That is around my speed. That number fluctuates a little bit depending on your speed. The faster speeds, they actually have to be a little bit higher because the enemy is that much faster that you're trying to make sure they can't cut in front of you.
Gotcha. All right, and then we got ourselves the enemy setup or whatnot as far as an example here too.
So I have this set up right now for just show a Bernard. So okay. I've got all this base speed info in here. I've got tower bonus. I've got Swift set. So there's no leader skill. So what I've done is I've entered in 151 from runes because that puts the total speed right here at 307, right below 308. So that means that's going one speed slower than my Bernard. So I've got to try to make sure that can't cut in front of me to be perfectly speed tuned. Which, if we go down to the bottom, we can see. So my Bernard caps its speed on turn 5. So again, remember, this starts at turn 0. And so it takes him 5 turns to reach 100% attack bar. So that's where this sheet starts because that's where he turns 100%.
Right. And
that means it's his first turn.
And so and taking that back, you know, and I guess so I can make sure I'm understanding this right. Once we get into that match, right, technically we're all on turn 0 and then everybody's attack bar goes up. So once Bernard, your Bernard, who has the lead, is ready to go, that's essentially turn 5, right?
Yes, so that would be what normally most people see as turn 1. Is that they see the first turn like, oh, my Bernard's max skill. Excuse me, that must be turn 1.
Right, which it's not. It's turn 5.
To come to us, it's turn 5.
Gotcha.
So that's what you're seeing. So as you can see, the enemy Bernard's at 107.45, and my Bernard's at 107.8. So that's how close my Bernard's outspeeding that other one. So it's very, very, very close. And then we see Seek will go. So Seek would go turn 6 after Bernard buffed. So then Seek would get buffed up. And that Bernard's barely slower at 128.94. And then we got Faye at 148.636, and the enemy Bernard's at 150. So what that means right there is that a Bernard will cut in front of me, in front of my Faye, if they're 1 speed slower than me.
Gotcha.
So right there, I can already tell my team's not speed tuned enough. So that my Faye and my Lucian both would get the turn stolen from them.
Gotcha. Cool, cool, cool. And so, with regards to the numbers that you got down for the enemy Bernards, is this actually from one of the opponents that you have fought before and you know his units and runes, or did you just put those in as example for now?
It is from someone I know, and that's the reason why I have the leader skill option in here as well for the enemies units, because a lot of the Guardian players know exactly what the other person's running and know the exact speeds, because the one disadvantage of being like a Guardian 2 or Guardian 3 is everyone gets to see your units all the time.
True.
So if you want to say, if you like, let's say you have someone's Chloe that's always cutting in front of you, and you know them and see them on the list, you can go take a look at them, and then you can enter their info, and you can see for that exact person, okay, well, yep, they're cutting in front of this unit barely by, it could be just a tiny margin, but they're still getting cut in front of.
Right, right. Oh man, that's intense. Woof. And so, gosh, it's so crazy to see like all the numbers put out down there, because now I always, you know, when we look at certain fights or whatnot, we're like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to. There's not going to be an issue there. When in all reality, it can literally come down to the point or two, you know, where they can kind of fight you, and you wonder yourself like, how can that be? And then so when you break it down like this, I can see now that why it makes sense where some things don't get it cut off when you don't get the right percentage. Because, you know, generally speaking, when people talk about the whole, oh, let's just get 70, you know, 70% of, you know, whatever the unit are, they're like, they feel like it's the golden standard for every single situation, when in all reality, it's not.
And that's the hard part where it comes in, where that's where the little things come into play, like speed buff. Like if I use an Orion, let's just say I use an Orion as a buffer,
right.
That Bernard might jump in front of my Seek. Because my Seek is so far away from Orion, and without that speed buff, I'd have to really get my Seek, Faye, and Lucian a lot higher in order to get sync with Orion, because I don't have that speed buff. So that's why I say Bernard kind of cheats, is because, let's say I add, I don't know exactly what's, I think it's 85 speed to my Lucian. Does that make him? It is, so yeah, it's 80, so my Lucian's 78. So if I got him 7 speed faster, if you come back down here and look, so we've got Lucian right here and Bernard right here. That's what I need to be perfectly synced. It might even be 6. So let's see, I might be able to enter 84. And yep, so 84 would work. So I need to get my Lucian 6 speed faster to have him perfectly synced, which for me is nice, because now I know, okay, I can probably get that from grindstones.
Gotcha.
But that 6 speed could cause me to lose a match.
Okay. So one of the things that, you know, a subscriber might say to you is that having something like this for the people that are top rank is going to be good, because like you said, they can see the people's you know, units or whatnot. They can kind of get an idea of where they're at. But let's say for the typical, you know, intermediate player that's coming on board, is trying to hit the conquer ranks, you know, they don't obviously see them, you know, to see the people's opponents, you know, units and runes or whatnot. And they're just kind of going off of what they input as far as where they need to be. Is there going to be a quote unquote kind of, it's kind of bad because I already know the answer to this, right? Is there going to be like, we all say, like we say the percentage, right? Certain amount of percentage. What should be a goal? Maybe like just a blanket statement, kind of a goal to go for when people should be, when people input this. What should be a goal for people to hit when it comes to certain percentages?
It really depends on how far you're going to push up and how fast your buffer is. How fast your buffer is really the biggest thing. I mean, there's baselines for every rank, like Conqueror, Conk 2, Conk 3, Conk 4, that people, or sorry, Conk 4, Guardian 1, there's a fail. But there's kind of baseline speeds. I mean, everyone kind of says Guardian's around 270. I think it's higher now because of grindstones. Definitely higher, I think. But that's kind of your baseline of, okay, that's where everyone's going to be at. So if you know your Bernard is, let's say, like mine, 264 speed, So that's pretty good for Conqueror 2. That's what a lot of people's are going to be around, is that 260 range. So what I would say is what I'm going to be doing is trying to make sure that a 260 speed enemy Bernard is not going to cut in front of me.
Right. Okay.
So I don't have to make it perfect, but I want to make it for my range. So I want to make sure that what I'm seeing most of the time from other people in my range, that I want to make sure that I'm not getting cut in front of by.
Gotcha. I like it. I like it. And so, even though we are given an example with regards to the arena, this can be used for arena, arena offense, Guild Wars offense, so on and so forth. Do you want to go ahead and give? I know you said you had you could set up with your Guild War or whatnot. Do you want to do an example with the Guild War so they can kind of see what it would be?
Yeah, I'll do a full list and just show kind of how easy it is to use.
Okay.
So I'll do one of my Guild Wars offenses that I use quite a bit. So again, you want to enter your buffer first. So I'm going to enter Orion. And Orion's base speed is 106. Then I'm going to enter Veramos. And Veramos' base speed is 100. And then I'm going to enter Kumar. And Kumar's base speed is 96. So there's my 3 units for Guild Wars. Now, none of them are of Swift sets. And we don't have a leader skill. So we keep that the same. So what we get to do is we can just go ahead and just enter in their speeds. So right now I have 104 on my Orion. My Veramos has 80, and my Kumar has 64. So right now I've just entered in all my information, and everything's already auto-populated for me.
Gotcha.
So we can see that Orion's going first, Veramos is going second, Kumar would be going third. Now, if we go down to the bottom here, we can see that Orion's going first, Veramos second. So we just stop here because we don't have a 4th unit. So we get to see, so turn 9, because my Orion maxes on turn 7. So again, starting at 0. So in the games, when my Orion's reaching max, it's turn 7. And then what I want to do is, I can already see this enemy Bernard so gonna go past me, which is fine because if you look at my Orion, he is 20. Geez, I can't count. 210.
210.
Easiest thing I can't count. So let's say, for example, we wanted to look at another Orion. So if we say he's not on Swift and that he's got a 103 speed from runes, that's going to put him at 225, and it's going to put my Orion at 226. So this would be a good comparison to see between like an Orion against an Orion. So now I can go down, and I'm looking at Orion here. So my Orion gets the first turn. Veramos gets the second turn because he's at 139.2. And then that Orion is going to steal that turn from my Kumar. So that means my Kumar is close to being speed synced perfectly, but he's off by just a little bit. And it looks like it's probably only 2 speed I'd have to increase.
Yeah, so
Kumar to be.
Go ahead and put that in so we can kind of figure out, so we can play around, because obviously this is what it comes down to, guys. When you take a look at these turns and make it the changes you need to be, now you know what you need to do with regards to syncing up your units, and that can literally come from just a quick rune switch, or you might find yourself collecting those grindstones from the Rift of Worlds and be able to slap on a speed rune and get it done.
So for me, it's 3 speed, so I have to get my Kumar to 67 to not get interrupted. So my Kumar's pretty close, but he's not quite there. So he's only off by 3 speed, which is, like you said, that's a rift. I can just try to get a grindstone, and that would fix that problem, and then my Kumar is indeed synced. Now, something I will say is, you notice he's only 78%. And like I said before, you got to be pretty high up there to not get interrupted. It's because we don't have a 4th unit. Now, no one's really done the percentage calculations for Guild Wars as much as they've done it for Arena. And what they do is everyone, like, the baseline for Orion is normally that everyone's got to be around 83%. So right in kind of a line where Veramos is at 86. And that's because there'd be another turn going down here for another monsters that's not there. So we don't have to be that high to hit that baseline because it's only our 3rd unit going, not our 4th unit going.
Cool. Yeah, buddy. All right. So I'm trying to look at some of these other numbers here, whatnot. What was I gonna say? Because I don't.
One thing I totally forgot to say is recently we found out ComToUs has been rounding up. So
I think you see it on Reddit.
Yeah.
I think I read that post too. It's funny because I was going back and forth on some other random post that was ridiculous, and I saw that and I'm like, really? Like now is when it comes out?
we've had 2 people. It's been within, I think, the last 2-3 months that we figured this out. We've had 2 or 3 people set up their team to be perfectly speed tuned. So let's say like Galleon's like 180, and then they're running a different leader, and then the other unit's 180 as well, and then they're going ahead of Galleon when Galleon, or 179, but they're 179.4, and for whatever reason, at any overflow, CompToUs has been rounding up. So then that unit's at 180. So if they're not running Galleon as the leader, unless they're running the other unit as the leader, the other unit's stealing the turn from Galleon. So it's going ahead of Galleon because it's been rounded up from 179.4 to 180 to equal the 180 that Galleon is.
Gotcha. Cool. All right.
So that's why you see total numbers. You don't see any points or anything like that because everything's been rounded up.
Gotcha. I like it. And so kind of a friendly reminder again, because I know we talked about it originally, because it's on the violent, right, you're putting the total amount of speed on rune 1. If it was swift, though, you would want to put out each individual speed too. So again, just for I know my subscribers, if you're like me right now, you're still kind of like, oh my god, this is so much. What was the reason why we put it out for all 6 runes versus 1 rune for the violent versus swift there?
So for violent, so Orion, is that number is not being affected by leader skills, is not being affected by your tower bonus. Tower bonus doesn't show up anywhere. So when you see that green number next to you on a violent set, that is the actual speed from runes. If you have a unit on swift, that green number next to your speed, that is indeed including the swift set. So the swift set is not 100% of what speed you're getting, because let's say for you, let's use Orion, for example. Let me just delete this, and we'll put the tower bonus to 0. So as you can see, the total is 106 speed. Right. So if I enter 25 in here, I'm gonna have to unhide it, won't I? Yeah, I will. I'll have to unhide it to show it. But if you add 25 plus 106, why is it rounding up to 133? Because it really should be 25, and then we should be getting 1 extra, so we should be at 132, but there's that little percentage that's coming on afterwards, so it's really going to be 132.4, and then that's gotten rounded up to me 133. Okay. So that is not your exact speed when you see that green number if you're using a swift set, because that 25% is getting calculated off your base speed. So to make sure you get the exact speed that your unit's moving at, I suggest putting it in rune by rune, just so you don't get any variances.
Good deal. Yeah, I'm so glad you explained that, because again, I know that was one of those things that's like, oof, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty confusing. I mean, CompToUs, they've done a lot as far as info for this game, but there's still a lot of stuff that we just keep finding out, and they're like, oh, this is how this works. Okay. Yeah. And oh, you guys did change it to this now. Okay. But basically, any percentage thing, so tower bonus, swift set, leader skill, is all based off your base speed. That's one of the biggest things, is that some people are like, well, that tower bonus is huge. It's 15%. I got a 300 or 200 speed unit, I'm going to get 30% more speed. No, you're just getting it off of whatever their base speed is.
Cool. Good deal. So next one up, I think what I want to go ahead and do is, if we can, I know we were talking about it early on, let's give an example of my arena defense, as I know that it is currently doing well for me, but currently has some issues. It's kind of broken. So let's go ahead and showcase that particular one here. For those that have been following, or maybe are new to the channel, welcome to the channel. My current arena defense is Vanessa, Orion, Veramos, and Kumar. As you guys know, I recently pulled Kumar about a month ago, maybe 2 to 3 weeks ago, and I knew right then and there that I wanted to play with like a mid-range kind of a setup that utilized this kind of a composition with attack bar buffs and cleansing and so on and so forth, and it's done exceptionally well, but unfortunately there is some issues with it, and I need to improve it. So what we're going to do today is use myself as an example, so you can see when you would kind of get into this situation and figure out your issues, where you see those issues and what you got to do to fix it up here. So for the base speed, I'm sorry, the total speed on Orion is going to be plus 135.
Before we get into that, though, what's your tower at?
Tower's at 15.
So you got 15.
Come on, man. You know me. You know I ain't going to play around. This is Epic Fail community, son. Come on. We don't play around with
no... You're using Vanessa lead, right?
Yeah. I got to take advantage of it. We don't play no games.
I know you're Orion all too well, so I know what's violent.
Yeah.
So we got 135 Orion.
And then we got the 124 Veramos. We got the 60 Vanessa. And then the slacker of a unit, Kumar, is at 41.
Gotta get that speed up.
I know, I know.
All right, so what we see here is, so we've got our Orion at 292, so he's barely moving ahead on turn 5. And this is something I wanted to talk about a little bit here, is that is huge. There's something a little bit speed caps. So if we decrease this speed, so we go from 135, let's just say to 130. Is that going to drop us below? No, 129 will. So if you're, oh my gosh, I can't count, 128. So if your Orion was 7 speeds slower, it would max turn would be on turn 6 instead of turn 5. So because your Orion is so fast on Violent, that it's actually gotten over that speed cap to hop up to that next level. And there's a bunch of those different levels. I have them all actually listed on the front of the sheet of what those levels are. But that makes a huge difference in when we're talking about turn order. So that means that he's going 1 turn earlier than most other Orions would be that would be on Violent. So it's a very, very good thing that he's over that turn 5 cap.
Gotcha. So that's kind of a good number to shoot for as far as overall speed. If people are saying, "Hey, I want to play with a Violent Orion," what's a good speed to kind of focus on?
I mean, for looking at it, we just found out, so it's a plus 128. But again, or 129 with the Vanessa leader. So that's where you're getting that extra from. Right. Everyone else is going to be kind of struggling to get over that point.
Right.
So
right.
Just because your unique situation where you got that 33% leader skill and 135 on Violent, which is very fast, that gives you that much more of an advantage because your Orion is actually going a turn earlier than almost any other Orion would be that's on Violent.
Gotcha. Cool.
Because if you look at your total speed, you're moving at 292 as your total speed.
I like it. All right. So breaking it down here, we're looking at Veramos. Where are we going?
Let's go ahead and let's look at Veramos here. So Veramos, definitely within buff range at 93%. Vanessa is going to be iffy, and Kumar, he's going to get interrupted most times. Let's see. So we've got 100 speed from runes here, Bernard. So it's a 256 Bernard. So let's go to Kumar. And as you see, that Bernard's going to be moving in front of your Kumar. So a 256 speed Bernard, so with tower and with swift set. So that means if you're looking at the unit, the best way to do that is just take the tower off of here. So 239 speed Bernard. If you looked at the unit itself, that's what would be moving in front of your Kumar.
Gotcha. So let's go ahead and plug and chug and see what kind of speed we would need to get Kumar in line.
All right. So this is going to be interesting. Now, Orion, like I said, he doesn't cheat, so there's no speed buff. So Kumar's would have to get a pretty significant increase. As you can see, he's moving at 133, and let's find out the Bernard speed we need to move. So let's put in the 130. Is that going to be close? That's close. 135. All right, so 135. Enemy Bernard's is just under 291 from your 292 Orion. So Kumar, let's see how much he needs to gain. So he needs to gain 30 more attack bar. Exactly. To get over that Bernard. So you know what? Let's just try 30 speed. So let's just put in 71. That puts him at 214. And let's see where he's at. So he's still
not there. Oh my god.
Let's put in 90.
I quit.
Put 90 speed. Let's see if that puts him over. No, that still doesn't put him over.
There you go.
Poor little Kumar.
Poor little Kumar. So
let's put in 95. Will that put us over?
Yes.
Yeah. So 95. Let's see if we can get away with 94. Nope. So it has to be 95 speed. So again, Orion does not include that speed buff, so he's only moving at his normal speed. So he's only gaining, as you can see right here, 16.66 attack bar each turn. And if he was getting speed buff, that'd probably knock up another 5, so he'd be getting around 20-something a turn. So that's the downside to using Orion as a buffer, is because right here we already had to get our Kumar up to 95 more speed. So we were talking about, what is that, 180? I can almost do math in my head. 191?
Yeah.
191 speed.
Yeah, I almost said 181. Yeah, 191.
So 191 would have to make your Kumar able so he won't get cut in front of him. Now, the thing is with your defense is your Orion's probably not going to outspeed a Bernard anyways that you'd be facing.
Correct.
Up in the Guardian ranks, you're talking underneath him. So for your situation, it's not too bad that Kumar's going that lower, but you probably want to increase him a little bit so you don't get lapped.
Right. So you don't get Rick rolled, man. So that's the beauty of it, guys. You know, so many times we set up a particular comp, and when we look at it, you know, from the front, you're like, oh no, it's everything should be good. It all makes sense, but it takes, you know, different types of things like this, a spreadsheet, you know, learning the concept of speed tuning and then putting it in, plugging and chugging so you can figure out where you're actually, you know, going to be. That's what really comes down to it as far as really helping you improve your game. So thank you so much for that. I guess I wanted to see if there was anything to add, because I know that there is quite a few things with regards to the spreadsheet that some people can use as a reference. Anything that you want to go ahead and add to this mix?
The best thing to do is just hop back to the first page.
Okay.
And everything you see, let me see, 2 to 14. So every page is set up for a different buffer. So again, when I say turn 5, that means when their attack bar reaches 100%. So what that means is, as you can see right here, so Bernard, whose max attack bar is on turn 5, goes 132 speed from runes or higher. So if you have 132 speed from runes or leader skills, and I should know, I did all of this math with a 15% tower buff. So all this math is including a 15% tower buff. If you don't have 15%, that number is going to change a little bit. But I know that's a lot of the tower that most people max out first, so that's why I did that.
Right.
And then, so like for instance, the Bernard is max attack bars on turn 4, so 202 speed. You're thinking, who's got that? But if you add in that Vanessa leader skill, that takes away a bunch of that. Or add in a like for me, a Faye leader skill, that's going to take away some of that. So it might be possible to get your Bernard to move on turn 4. So the reason Bernard's separate from Orion and Kabila is because that Bernard has that speed buff, so his math is different. Again, you guys don't have to worry about that. I did all that for you. You just have to enter in those speeds, and everything auto-populates for you. So for Orion and Kabila, I did, so for turn 5, turn 6, and turn 7. And then Kabila, because she's so fast, I did turn 4. Then Purian and Frigate, because they're both the 50% buffers. So for max on turn 5, max on turn 6. Then for those of you who run Bernard, Megan, Lucian, I did a Bernard and Megan because Bernard buffs and Megan buffs. And since both of those are attacking the attack, or affecting the attack bar, that's the part I forgot, I'll explain that too, is that they have their own separate pages. And then Megan, if anyone's using a solo Megan, I included that as well. Now, I should show a blank one here. Is if you go to a blank sheet, you'll see where it'll say turn 4 is we're at 0.
Right.
And then 30, 30, 30. And then 0, 30, 0, 0, 0, 30, 30, 0, and 0, 30, 30, 30. So when a unit buffs, they're just gaining attack bar. So there's nothing affects their speed, nothing affects anything else. It's just a direct 30% increase to attack bar.
Right.
If, for instance, I clicked on a Bernard. So with this Bernard, it would be a 30% increase of the attack bar. It has nothing to do with your speeds. The only thing that affects the speeds is the speed buff.
Right. Okay. Cool. That should be good. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that we wanted to add. Let me know. I think we covered pretty much everything.
I think that's pretty much it. It's not that hard to use once you've used it once or twice. The biggest thing I would suggest is rewatch if you need to, because you can just pick up a couple different things. But it's not overly hard to use. Like I said, I did all the math for you because I wanted to use it myself, and so I wanted to make it so I could just plug in my numbers and have the info. Because there's nothing worse than trying to sit there and do those calculations. Oh, I changed 2 speed. Let me redo everything. It's much easier when it's just all done for you.
Yeah, definitely. It saves a lot of time. Yeah, I'm pretty sure all of the guests today that are watching on board, we're gonna take a couple times to watch a video. I know that I do the same with my Educate and Dominate videos. You know, I make them for the people, but I also, you know, I learn from them because that's what I want to do. I want to improve my game as well as everybody else's. So that is awesome, man. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to come on board. I really appreciate it. Again, guys, Bad Hands, one of the guild leaders in our Epic Fail community, comprised of 4 guilds guilds. These are one of the many things that we do within our community, helping out our players and whatnot, improve their game. 3 competitive guilds and 1 farming guild. If you're ever interested in joining, go ahead and shoot me an email, childish402@gmail.com, and I'll keep you, up to date with regards to what's going on in the recruitment. Otherwise, just go ahead and wait for that recruitment video when it comes out, and we'll be sure to check into you on that. Any shout outs you want to go ahead and do before we close the video, sir?
The only thing I want to do is just give a shout out to I think it's Arinko, I think it's how you say his name, on Reddit, for his speed tuning guide he put in there. I mean, that's where I got most of this info from. I had to do some of it myself, but I mean, understanding the attack bar is not something that's really simple, so I hope you guys were able to understand it.
Yep, definitely. And hopefully, I mean, there's a lot of things that we can discuss, but we'll go ahead and keep the video relatively short for the people out there. But just stay tuned on the channel, gentlemen. We'll definitely bring, Bad Hands, Lunix. We got a multitude of people within the Epic Fail community that I'm looking forward to bringing back on board, so give you guys some more info. But until that time, guys, thank you all for tuning in. It's a pleasure to make these videos for you as always. It's your boy Childish at Bad Hands with ChildishPlays. Checking out. Take care, and we will see you next time, guys. We're out.